A 24-year-old man has been charged in yesterday's stabbing in Ontario that left 3 people injured. The attack happened inside a gender studies classroom at the University of Waterloo.
Investigators have reason to believe that this was a planned and targeted attack motivated by hate related to gender expression and gender identity.
Police say the man was a student of that university at some point and had no previous criminal record. He appeared in court today. Well, for more on this, let's go to the CBC's Sarah Galash, and she is following the latest details on this story. Sarah, what more have we heard from police today?
Yeah, Natalie, it was 3:35 p.m. yesterday that 911 calls initially came into police about a knife attack inside a classroom in Haggie Hall on the campus of the University of Waterloo. It was a course in philosophy, the topic of discussion, gender studies, and police say that the suspect, 24-year-old Giovanni Vilab Alman, an international student, possibly a recent graduate of the school, but not a student enrolled in this class, that he entered this classroom carrying 2 large knives and attacked the 38-year-old female professor from Kitchener. In response to that happening, they say that some of the students in this classroom, a class of about 40 students approximately, that they started throwing objects, police saying possibly there were chairs thrown at the suspect to try and stop this attack from happening. Others fled the classroom, and in the chaos of this, there were 3 more attempted attacks that occurred, 2 of them resulting in injury to a 20-year-old female student and a 19-year-old male student. All of the injuries are considered to be serious, though none of them are considered to be life-threatening. And it is not, police say, believed that any of these individuals were specifically targeted as individuals, but rather that it was the general topic of discussion to do with gender identity that was what fueled what they are calling a hate-motivated attack. And I want to play you a little bit more on their reasoning for coming to that conclusion.
We're being careful, but also quite direct, and we believe this was a targeted, specific attack related to gender expression and gender identity. We have information that he inquired about the title or the subject matter of the class, and we believe that was with purpose. And the information that we're gathering to date lends us to believe through the course of our investigation, and including an interview with the accused, that that was his purpose, was to make a statement, was to purposely target that subject matter of gender identity and gender expression.
We were told the first police officer on scene arrived within 3 minutes of the first 911 call coming in. That initially, Vilab Alman, the suspect, posed as a victim, telling police that he had been a victim in this, but other witness description led police to realize that that was not the case. He was placed under arrest. He was held in custody overnight, and as you heard in that clip there, he has been interviewed. He's appearing in court today, and we're not sure if that has ended or if that continues, but police have recommended, Natalie, given the seriousness of what happened, that he continue to be held as they proceed with their investigation.
And Sarah, the big question for students at the university as well as the community is, will the campus be safe? What's said about that?
Police believe that this threat particularly has been addressed, and that there is not any recommendation here for there to be additional security on the campus. The university acknowledges, though, that there were lapses in their internal system in terms of putting out an emergency alert campus-wide. They said at the press conference, quote, that it didn't activate as quickly as expected, meaning that campus-wide that alert was delayed, and they called it an unfortunate delay, but one that did not affect the timing of the police response, which they praised. They said that the current threat level right now is not higher than normal. This hour, there is a university vigil being held, the university officials addressing what has happened here, making assurances to students and faculty that the University of Waterloo continues to be an exclusive place for all, and that it continues to be a priority. But we have a clip from that, so let me play you what's going on right now.
We gather now as a community to affirm that hate has no place here. We are united against all forms of violence, hatred, and bigotry. We are committed to fostering an inclusive, safe, and welcoming environment for members of our community, denouncing all forms of hate, discrimination, and violence.
Now, to those assurances, there is now an open letter that is circulating, signed by what appear to be hundreds of academics from across the country, calling on faculties and universities across the country, in light of what's happened at the University of Waterloo, to work with those who teach sex, gender, and sexuality courses in other disciplines to create meaningful and actionable supports to secure the safety and well-being of those who are and who may be perceived to be LGBTQ plus individuals. Now, police agree that there is not an increased threat here, but did speak, I'll just finish by saying they did speak to what they see as an uptick in violence targeting the LGBTQ plus community, not at specifically the University of Waterloo or even in that region, but right across the country during this month of June, which of course, Natalie, is Pride celebrations happening across the country. And what the police urged the public to do is not to be in fear of what has happened at the university, but rather to gather together and, quote, coming from the police, to celebrate love conquering hate.
The CBC's Sarah Galashan. And we have just gotten reaction from the Prime Minister to the incident at the University of Waterloo on Twitter. Justin Trudeau wrote this. Take a look. It says, "The fact that the stabbings at the University of Waterloo were hate motivated is absolutely despicable. I strongly condemn this vile act. It is another reminder that we can never let misogynistic anti-2S LGBTQI+ rhetoric escalate, because these words have real life consequences." Well, for more on reaction to this and more, let's bring in Barbara Perry. She is the director of the Centre on Hate, Bias and Extremism at Ontario Tech University. She joins us from Oshawa, Ontario. Barbara, thank you for making the time. Police claim this was a hate-motivated attack related to gender expression and gender identity. This isn't someone who simply had a different opinion here. This went all the way to a violent attack. How do attacks like this escalate to that point?
Well, I think we have to understand this person probably as part of a broader network, not that it's, sort of a conspiracy, but he's very much informed, no doubt, by what he's consuming online, by the broader narratives that are circulating, bubbling up from the U.S., for example. If we look at the number of states that have introduced anti-trans legislation, banning gender affirming surgery, those sorts of things. This is really something that has been bubbling up for the last year or so in particular. And so this is the consequence of those kinds of narratives and that kind of rhetoric, is that it does inflame some people and mobilize some people to engage in violence, to correct what they see as a wrong, a social wrong.
And Barbara, we know police are also pointing to sort of a disturbing trend of violence happening against the LGBTQ community. You have done research on this. Walk us through what you have found.
Well, I think that a number of things that emerge when we're looking at violence against the queer community broadly. One is that it is one of those categories that's increasing, as you suggested. It also tends to be the most violent form of hate crime, as we see here with stabbing. But it is typically very violent. There are weapons involved. There's almost an attempt to erase identity. And I think that in terms of motivation, it really is, as I said, right, to correct a wrong, to punish people who are seen to be crossing gender boundaries, who are somehow transgressive in their behavior, in this case, obviously, in their identification as non-binary. So it's very much a reaction to what we're seeing in the Canadian context, for example, around school boards and school board trustee elections, where we've seen some running on the platform of controlling and constraining conversations about gender identity and gender expression. This is, again, a manifestation of that.
This happened, we know, on a university campus. What kind of impact do you think this will have on other students, especially those who identify as LGBTQ?
Well, there's a reason we call hate crimes message crimes. And I think this is, again, when we're talking about such a small community, a really sort of enclosed community in some respects, as campuses are, that the intent here is not just to single out this professor and these students, but to send a broader message to the community and those, even their allies, that trans individuals are not welcome, they're not valued, and in fact, they're at risk. They are to be punished for their identities. So I think it will create, obviously, trauma for those who were in the classroom and those who were most immediately affected as victims, but I think it will also have a ripple effect on other members of the community who will have similar levels of fear and anxiety. And I think hypervigilance about their surroundings moving forward, always being aware of who is around them and how people are perceiving them, looking at them. So it's going to take a while, I think, for that sensation to ebb away again on campus.
So given that, what do you think needs to be done to prevent similar incidents from happening again?
Well, I think the irony is that this really highlights the need to have these sorts of conversations about sort of that normalize non-binary gender identities. I think we need to expand the conversations of gender identity, not allow these sorts of incidents to silence those conversations, as the intention was.